don't feel seen or heard when much of these discussions are held. And it really does matter when we hear folks say who's going to pay for things, is we see the fact that we are paying for pollution in communities like mine. We're paying for, dirty water, dirty air.
It's finally happening, everybody. Congress taking big action right now and proposing a brand new stimulus relief package. This new legislation will provide eligible people with an extra boost of relief money to help during this time. So everybody, make sure to stay tuned to the end of the video to learn how you can claim this extra stimulus cash. And the US federal government responded to the crisis by sending out stimulus checks to help low-income and medium-income Americans, with one stimulus check of $1,200 in April 2020, another stimulus check of $600 in December 2020, and a third stimulus check of $1,400 in March 2021. Inflation is one reason why Congress will be taking action to get a fourth stimulus check passed. Rising inflation is a major concern in the United States right now. Rising inflation is hitting all sectors of the economy, and the overall rate of inflation on an annual basis reached 7.5% at the end of January, the highest level since 1982. Gas prices in particular are rising especially fast, reaching $4.25 a gallon. In a recent report by CNN, estimated that inflation was costing the average household $276 more per month, or about $1,100 per quarter. It's really ridiculous, everybody, because many people, especially those that are on low and moderate income, cannot afford to pay these rapid price increases. The government does have tools to direct families and cope with the rising gasoline prices and the overall cost increase in inflation. The administration could create a new program to help lower income families pay for the higher price of gasoline, raise interest rates to slow the economy, and find ways to ease supply chain disruptions. While all of those actions could help, they would take time to work their way through the economy and slow the growth of inflation. Families need help right now. Families definitely need help right now. In the Biden administration and lawmakers in Congress has been considering extra payments of $1,100 per household to pay for 4 months of higher prices going forward. But many economists and advocacy groups say that President Biden should provide a second or even a third check to low and moderate income families for an additional 4 months in the event that prices remain high. This is since we don't know when the crisis is going to end or when the prices for essential goods and services will return to more affordable levels. Now, Representative Omar has pointed to pilot programs in various places across the nation that have provided guaranteed income to some people. The Congresswoman argued that the United States should become the leader in measuring and safeguarding our people's economic well-being, saying her legislation would be a start in that direction. The program would not immediately begin sending out $1,200 checks to most people. Instead, it will create a $2.5 billion grant program to fund pilot guaranteed income programs across the nation. Then the legislation will also provide $1,200 per month to people making $75,000 or less per year. So folks, that's the breaking news about the fourth stimulus check that I want you to know. If you have any more questions about this, feel free to leave them in the comments.
Court services. We've improved rape prevention and education, as well as services and protections for young survivors. We've enhanced critical protections for Native American women and children who experience violence at the hands of non-Native perpetrators. It doesn't include everything we'd hoped for. That's the nature of legislation and compromise. I wish there had been stronger protections for housing and economic assistance, but we had to find an agreement, and we did. The bill contains several important provisions to help boost enforcement of our gun laws. I wish it would have finally closed the so-called boyfriend loophole, but that was beyond our reach in this effort. The lack of those provisions could not attract enough bipartisan support in the Senate to pass on their own. They'll be saved for another day. For nearly 30 years, VAWA has transformed the way we address domestic and sexual violence in America and saved countless lives. At a moment when nearly 1 in 3 women, 1 in 3, have experienced some form of physical or sexual violence, a crisis that's grown worse during the pandemic, VAWA is going to help save lives. Let me tell you a story. My office received a letter from a woman named Keisha, who works with Connections for Abused Women and Their Children in Chicago. Keisha told me that VAWA provides funding for domestic violence services at Chicago's Haymarket Center, an amazing agency I know full well. She shared the story of Cassandra, who was receiving treatment at the Center for Substance Abuse and disclosed to her counselor that she was the victim of abusive treatment. Her counselor referred her to VAWA, and that programming gave her an opportunity to, quote, open up about the emotional, financial, and physical abuse she'd suffered for years at the hands of an abusive husband. Keisha wrote, after weeks of domestic violence psychoeducation,
severely underestimated the Ukrainian people. Every time an innocent Ukrainian is killed, the resolve of the people grows stronger, and we stand with them. I join my colleagues in one voice to say this: Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine. And, Mr. President, just seeing the video that the President showed us is heartbreaking and strengthens our resolve. Putin, by being such a villain, being such a brutal, evil man, is not going to deter the Ukrainians for sure, and not the American people from helping Ukraine. It strengthens our resolve when we see how vicious, how brutal he is. Now, another issue. This morning, I want to highlight two steps Senate Democrats are taking to maintain our laser focus on lowering costs for American families. First, today, the Senate Finance Committee is holding a hearing examining one of the most vexing issues facing Americans everywhere: the alarming rise in prescription drug costs. Few things are as frustrating and debilitating as going to the pharmacy and seeing the price on your receipt go up and up and up for essential medications. For families struggling to make ends meet, drug costs present a harrowing Sophie's choice. Do I buy groceries and diapers and take care of my kids, or do I pay for my medications? It is a decision no American should make, but millions have to make it every day. Insulin is a particularly flummoxing example. According to some sources, a 40-day supply can now climb north of $600 a month. For millions of Americans who rely on insulin to manage their diabetes, this is a crisis that should compel the Senate to act. I expect that we will consider next steps soon on proposals already presented to my colleagues. And besides rising prescription drug costs, Senate Democrats are zeroing in on the alarming state of energy prices. In the coming weeks, I expect that Congress will be calling on CEOs from the oil and gas companies to testify on the alarming spike in energy prices. Over the past few weeks, as war in Ukraine began, the price of a barrel of oil rose precipitously. That immediately translated to oil and gas companies raising the price for Americans at the pump. But something is happening that Americans shouldn't overlook. Over the past few days, oil prices have actually been decreasing, but the price of gas at the pump has not. Some of the economists call this